There is a silence on the Mongolian steppe that speaks louder than any battle cry. It's a windswept silence, carrying the echoes of empires. Out here, under the endless blue sky, you can almost hear the thunder of 10,000 hooves, the ghost of a nation that once ruled the largest contiguous land empire the world has ever known. The name Genghis Khan still inspires awe, and rightfully so. From the Pacific to the Mediterranean, his legacy was a web of conquest, a testament to unparalleled power. But empires, like all living things, have a lifespan. They are born, they peak, and eventually they fade. Our story does not begin in the glorious dawn of this empire, but in its long twilight. It is not a story of conquest, but of desperation, not of a mighty Khan, but of a queen, the final queen. This is the story of Queen Genepil, the last queen of Mongolia. Her name has been nearly erased, a footnote in the brutal march of the 20th century. But her story is the story of a nation's soul, caught between its majestic past and a terrifyingly uncertain future. It is a story of a woman who wore a crown, not of gold, but of immense tragedy. To understand the weight of Genepil's crown, we must first understand the world she was born into. It is 1920. The Bogd Khanate, Mongolia's theocratic government, is a shadow of its former self. For centuries, the Mongols had lived under the sway of the Qing dynasty of China, but with the Qing's collapse in 1911, Mongolia declared its independence. They placed their faith in a figurehead, the Bogd Khan, a holy man believed to be the reincarnation of a great Lama. He was the living Buddha, a spiritual leader trying to navigate a new political reality. But this fragile independence was under threat from all sides. To the south, Chinese warlords eyed the territory, dreaming of reclaiming their lost province. To the north, a new, radical force was emerging, the Soviet Union. The Bolsheviks saw monarchy and religion as enemies of the people, and the Bogd Khanate represented both. Mongolia was a pawn in a much larger, colder game, and into this precarious world stepped a young woman named Genepil. She was not born into high nobility, but she was known for her striking beauty, her grace, and her intelligence. Her life was simple, connected to the land and the traditions of her people, but fate had a cruel design in store for her. In 1923, the Bogd Khan's wife, Queen Genepil, known as the Ek Dagana, or Mother Queen, passed away. The Bogd Khan himself was aging, frail, and going blind. His court was steeped in mourning and anxiety. According to tradition, the king needed a queen by his side, not just for companionship, but as a vital part of the spiritual and ceremonial life of the nation. The court officials scoured the country for a suitable replacement. Their search ended with Genepil. One can only imagine the whirlwind of emotions for this young woman. It was the highest honor imaginable, to stand beside the living Buddha, to become the Ek Dagana, the mother of the nation. But it was also a sentence. The Bogd Khan was dying. She was not being chosen as a partner for life, but as a queen for a dying regime. She was being asked to become the living symbol of a kingdom that was on life support. And so, Genepil left her old life behind. She was brought to the capital, Urga, what we now know as Ulaanbaatar. She was married to the Bogd Khan in a grand ceremony, a final, brilliant display of a fading tradition. For a few, fleeting months, she was queen. She performed her duties with dignity, a beacon of stability in a court swirling with fear and intrigue. She was the last flower to bloom before the winter frost. But the frost was coming. The political pressures from the Soviet Union became unbearable. Mongolian revolutionaries, inspired by Bolshevik ideology and supported by Soviet troops, began to consolidate power. They saw the Bogd Khanate as an archaic relic, an obstacle to their vision of a modern communist state. On May 20th, 1924, the inevitable happened. The Bogd Khan, the last link to Mongolia's imperial past, passed away. The light that Genepil was meant to complement had been extinguished. And with his death, the world around Queen Genepil shattered. The communist government, now firmly in control, moved quickly. They declared the end of the monarchy. They banned the search for the Bogd Khan's reincarnation. The 1,000-year-old tradition of rule by Khan was over, just like that. But what do you do with a queen when there is no longer a kingdom? For the new regime, Genepil was not a person, she was a symbol, and she was a dangerous one. She represented the old order, the very thing they had sworn to destroy. She was a living, breathing reminder of a past they wanted to erase from memory. Her existence was a threat. The crown was gone. The protection of the throne had vanished. Queen Genepil was now simply Genepil, a woman alone in a country that had changed overnight. The steppe winds still blew, but now they carried a new, chilling message. The revolution had won, and it was about to show the world and its final queen what that truly meant. The silence after a fall is the most deafening sound of all. In part 1, we witnessed the twilight of a kingdom. The Bogd Khan was dead, the monarchy was abolished, the young Queen Genepil, who had stood as a final, graceful symbol of an ancient order, was now utterly alone. The revolution had swept away her title, her protection, and her world. But the true tragedy was only beginning. With the Bogd Khan gone, the Mongolian People's Republic was born, a satellite state of the Soviet Union. The new regime was not content with merely changing governments. It sought to create a new kind of human being, one divorced from the superstitions of the past. And the past was everywhere. It was in the songs shepherds sang, in the prayers whispered to the sky, and in the very monasteries that dotted the landscape. The Red Purges began. This was a systematic campaign of terror, designed to eliminate any potential opposition. It targeted the nobility, the intellectuals, and, most fiercely, the Buddhist monks. Thousands were arrested on vague charges of counter-revolutionary activity or feudalism. They were executed or shipped off to Siberian labor camps, from which they never returned. The spiritual heart of Mongolia was being surgically, brutally removed. And where was Genepil in all this? She had returned to her home region, a mere shadow of the queen she had been. She must have lived in a state of constant, gnawing fear. Every hoofbeat approaching her gur could be the secret police. Every stranger's gaze felt like an accusation. She was a living relic of the old world, and the new world had no place for relics. She tried to disappear, to blend into the earth itself. She remarried, perhaps hoping that a simple, anonymous life would be her shield. But you cannot hide from a machine built for eradication. In the year 1937, the purges reached their peak, a period known as the Great Terror. The net was cast wider than ever. The regime's paranoia was insatiable, and on one fateful day in 1938, that net closed around Genepil. There was no trial. No evidence was needed. Her crime was her existence. She was Queen Genepil, the last consort of the Bogd Khan. That was a death sentence. She was arrested by the NKVD, the Soviet secret police, or their Mongolian counterparts. We have no record of her final words, no account of how she faced her captors. But we can imagine the strength, the quiet dignity she must have carried from her brief time as Ekdegina. She was not a political operative, she was a symbol. And on that day, the regime decided that symbols too must die. Shortly after her arrest, Queen Genepil was executed. She was just 35 years old. They did not build her a monument. They did not mark her grave. It is believed she was buried in a secret, unmarked mass grave somewhere outside Ulaanbaatar, alongside countless other victims of the purge. The regime sought to erase her twice, first from her throne and then from the earth itself. They wanted her story to end in that silent field, forgotten. But stories have a way of surviving. They are carried on the wind, passed down in whispers. For decades, Genepil's name was spoken only in secret, a dangerous memory. It was only after Mongolia's democratic revolution in 1990, after the fall of the communist government, that the truth could finally begin to surface. Today, Queen Genepil is remembered. She has been posthumously rehabilitated, officially recognized as a victim of political repression. But she is more than that. Her story is not just one of individual tragedy. It is the story of a nation's painful, violent transition into the modern world. She represents everything that was lost: the culture, the spirituality, the connection to a grand and majestic history that was very nearly severed forever. The empire of Genghis Khan was built on the power of its Khans, but the soul of Mongolia, its enduring spirit, has always been carried by its people. And in many ways, that spirit was embodied by its final queen. In her brief reign, we see the last flicker of the old world. In her tragic death, we witness the brutal birth pangs of the new. She was a woman caught in the gears of history, a silent song that was cut short. Her story is a heartbreaking reminder that history is not just about kings and conquests. It is also about the quiet voices that are silenced, the lives that are erased, and the fragile beauty that is so easily crushed. But by remembering Genepil, we refuse that final silence. We ensure that the echo of her story and the story of her people continues to unfold.